Welcome to the deep dive. You know, we love to tackle the big questions here, the ones that really make you think, and today is no exception.
Oh, yeah. We're diving into some deep waters today.
We've gotten a lot of requests to do a deep dive into the inconsistencies of the globe model.
Ah, yes, the age-old debate.
Exactly. It's one of those topics that can really spark some heated discussions.
Definitely. And you know what's fascinating to me?
What's that?
How deeply ingrained the globe model is in our understanding of the world.
I mean, it's what we're taught from a young age, right?
Right, from those early textbooks with the colorful illustrations of the Earth as this perfect sphere spinning in space.
And then we see those stunning images from NASA, those breathtaking views of our planet from space.
It's hard not to be awestruck by those pictures.
Totally. But then you come across these other observations, these things that don't quite seem to add up.
Like what, for example?
Well, like why the horizon always looks flat,
Ah, yeah, that's a classic one.
even when you're at high altitudes like in an airplane.
If the Earth is curved, shouldn't we see at least some curvature? Especially when we're way up high.
That's what you'd think, right?
It seems logical.
So how does the globe model account for this flat horizon?
Well, the explanation from the globe model perspective is that the Earth's curvature is subtle.
Subtle how?
Like, at the altitudes we typically experience, even from an airplane, it's often masked by a couple of things.
Okay, like what?
Atmospheric effects, for one.
The way light bends in the atmosphere.
Exactly. And also the limitations of our own vision.
So you're saying our eyes can only see so far?
Basically, yeah. Our field of vision is limited, and that combined with the way light interacts with the atmosphere can obscure that subtle curvature.
So it's kind of like when you're standing on a beach and looking out at the ocean,
You can't see the curve of the Earth even though it's there.
but you know that it is.
Right, it's a matter of scale and perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. But flat earthers obviously have a different interpretation of this flat horizon.
Of course.
What's their take?
For them, the flat horizon is direct evidence for a flat Earth.
Makes sense from their perspective.
They argue that perspective and the limitations of human vision create the illusion of a horizon even on a flat plane.
So basically what we see is what we get.
Pretty much.
Yeah, interesting. So we have two very different interpretations of the same observation.
And it really boils down to which model you're starting with.
Right. It's like looking at the same piece of evidence, but through completely different lenses.
And this is something we're going to see again and again as we delve deeper into this topic.
Different perspectives leading to very different conclusions.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to another inconsistency that I found particularly intriguing. The behavior of gyroscopes on airplanes.
Ah, yes, another classic argument.
Now, full disclosure, my understanding of gyroscopes is a bit rusty.
No worries, we'll break it down.
So here's my question. If the Earth is rotating at over 1,000 miles per hour,
As the globe model claims.
right, shouldn't those gyroscopes on planes need constant adjustment to account for that rotation?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But apparently they don't. They seem to maintain a fixed orientation throughout the flight.
That's right.
So how does the globe model explain this?
Well, it's a bit nuanced. Gyroscopes are designed to account for the Earth's rotation.
Oh, really?
But the effect of that rotation over the relatively short distances and durations of most flights is incredibly subtle.
So it's not that the rotation isn't affecting the gyroscope at all.
It's just that the impact is so small, it's practically negligible, especially for the purposes of navigation.
Okay, so for all intents and purposes, it's like the Earth isn't rotating at all during those flights.
You could think of it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine you're on a merry-go-round.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If the merry-go-round is spinning slowly, you can easily walk in a straight line across it.
Without much difficulty.
Right. But if it's spinning really fast.
Trying to walk in a straight line becomes a whole lot harder.
Exactly. Because you're constantly being pulled sideways by that rotation. In the case of airplanes and gyroscopes, the Earth's rotation is like that slow merry-go-round.
The effect is there, but it's so subtle, it doesn't significantly impact the gyroscope's orientation over a typical flight path.
Precisely.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing flat earthers have a different explanation?
You bet they do. They see the steady behavior of gyroscopes as proof that the Earth isn't rotating at all.
Ah, so back to the basic premise.
Exactly. They argue that if the Earth were truly spinning at over 1,000 miles an hour,
There's no way gyroscopes could maintain a fixed orientation without constant adjustment.
it just wouldn't be possible from their point of view.
So once again, we have two completely different interpretations of the same phenomenon.
Yeah. And this highlights something really important about this whole discussion.
What's that?
The importance of critical thinking. It's not about blindly accepting one model over the other.
It's about examining the evidence and considering multiple perspectives.
Exactly. And you know what? Even if we ultimately lean towards the globe model,
Or the flat Earth model, or somewhere in between.
the process of grappling with these ideas can be incredibly valuable.
I agree. It makes you question what you think you know.
And why you think you know it.
It forces you to really think for yourself,
Exactly. And that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive.
getting those brain gears turning. So we've talked about the flat horizon and the behavior of gyroscopes.
Two of the big ones when it comes to questioning the globe model.
Now, these sources you sent, they go on to explore some even deeper and more controversial aspects of the flat Earth model.
We're talking about historical anomalies, alternative interpretations of celestial bodies,
And even the idea of a firmament enclosing our world.
things that really push the boundaries of what we consider possible.
Are you ready to dive into those deeper waters?
Absolutely. Let's see what other thought-provoking insights we can uncover.
All right, then buckle up, everyone, because things are about to get really interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the inconsistencies of the globe model. Remember where we left off.
Of course. We were just about to explore some of the more controversial aspects of the flat Earth model, right?
Exactly. And you know these sources you sent.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from some pretty bold claims.
Like what?
Well, they delve into these historical anomalies, things that don't quite fit the conventional narrative of history.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that too. It's like they're suggesting that these anomalies could actually be evidence for a flat Earth.
Right. And one of the things that really struck me was the prevalence of mud in old photographs.
The mud.
Yeah, particularly from the 19th century.
Oh, right. I remember seeing those images, those city streets and buildings covered in thick layers of mud.
Exactly. It's not just a little bit of dirt after a rainstorm either. We're talking serious mud flows, almost as if something cataclysmic had happened.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So what's the connection to the flat Earth?
Well, the sources propose that this widespread mud could be evidence of a global liquefaction event.
Liquefaction. Remind me what that is again.
Sure. Liquefaction happens when saturated soil loses its strength and stiffness.
Usually because of an earthquake or some other sudden stress, right?
Right. And it can cause all sorts of problems. Buildings can sink, landslides can occur, and basically the ground turns into quicksand.
Yikes. So they're suggesting that a massive global liquefaction event buried these cities in mud.
That's the idea. But here's the thing. There's no mention of a global event of this magnitude in conventional historical accounts.
That's strange. You'd think something that catastrophic would have been well documented.
You'd think so, right? And that's precisely what makes this so intriguing. The sources propose that this event, if it happened, was deliberately hidden or erased from history.
Wow. Okay, so we have this mysterious mud potentially hinting at a cataclysmic event that's been scrubbed from the history books. And it gets even weirder.
Oh, yeah.
These sources also point out that many old buildings, particularly in Europe and North America, appear to have been built with their first floors completely underground, almost like they were intentionally buried.
Oh, yeah, the buried architecture. That's a fascinating one.
It is. They show windows and doorways that are now several feet below ground level, as if the ground level itself was raised at some point. And this buried architecture is found all over the world.
It's hard to explain with conventional explanations like gradual soil accumulation.
Exactly. It makes you wonder why these buildings were buried in the first place. Who would do that and for what purpose?
It's almost like we're seeing only the tip of the iceberg and there's a whole hidden world buried beneath our feet.
Okay, now we're talking about a lost civilization, buried buildings, a global cataclysm.
It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
It does. But the sources present these ideas with such conviction that you can't help but wonder if there's something to it.
It's important to remember that we're dealing with some pretty bold claims here.
Yeah.
But even if we take it all with a grain of salt,
It's still incredibly thought-provoking.
it really is. It raises some fundamental questions about our understanding of history science and even the nature of reality itself.
Absolutely. It's like someone just shook up our snow globe of a world and said, hey, things might not be as settled as you think they are. And that can be both unsettling and exhilarating at the same time. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got a lot more ground to cover in these sources, including some pretty wild ideas about the nature of the sun and moon,
Oh, yes.
the possibility of a firmament, and even the existence of an ice wall.
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface of these fascinating and often controversial ideas.
Wow. It's amazing to think about all the ground we've covered in this deep dive into the inconsistencies of the globe model.
It really is. And you know what strikes me?
What's that?
How these sources manage to weave together so many different threads.
Like what?
History, science, and even a bit of mystery, all to challenge our understanding of the world.
It's like we've been looking at a puzzle our whole lives.
Right.
But suddenly someone hands us a bunch of new pieces.
And they don't quite fit the picture we thought we knew.
Exactly. And those pieces, the flat horizon, the gyroscope behavior, the historical anomalies, they all raise some really fundamental questions.
About what we believe and why we believe it.
One of the biggest takeaways for me has been the importance of critical thinking.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to just accept what we've been taught or what we see on the surface.
But these sources, they encourage us to dig deeper.
To question our assumptions.
And to consider alternative perspectives.
Exactly. And you know what?
Huh.
Even if we don't ultimately subscribe to the flat Earth model itself,
Right.
the process of engaging with these ideas can still be incredibly valuable.
I agree. It can make us more aware of our own biases.
More discerning of the information we consume.
And more open to the possibility that there might be more to the story than we've been told.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And this deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to just how much there is out there that I haven't even considered before.
It's a humbling experience, isn't it? To realize that our understanding of the world is constantly evolving.
And that there's always more to learn and discover.
Always.
So as we wrap up this exploration of the inconsistencies of the globe model.
What's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to cultivate a sense of curiosity and wonder.
I love that.
Don't be afraid to question, to explore, to challenge the status quo. Yeah.
The world needs more of that.
But pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong journey.
It really is.
And sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most profound discoveries.
Well said.
And to our listeners out there, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and never stop seeking the truth wherever it may lead you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating ride.
Until next time.